those of you guys who are joining us for the first time, this is Elevate Women, a series of interviews with inspirational women all across the globe who have something kind of interesting, inspirational to share with us. The purpose of this series is to guide, to inspire, to give examples, and to give examples of, you know, normal people. Not sometimes in different events or talks, you see those multimillionaires, women who are, you know, leading those companies, and you don't really relate to them because you see them that far from you and coming from such a different background. So what we're trying to do here is to show, you know, normal women like everyone, like Cecilia here, like me, who work hard, who have different paths, who pursue their passions, their interests, and have some interesting lessons to share. And especially in this company, we have many young women who perhaps are looking for role models, for different examples. And yeah, basically this is the main purpose of this series of talks. So we have Cecilia Scolaro with us today. Thank you, Cecilia, for joining us.
Thank you.
Cecilia is currently a responsible design advocate and consultant. She will tell us a little bit more about this whole movement of responsible design that we have a lot of designers here at Empathy. So probably some of them will have heard of this, maybe others haven't. So we will learn more. Cecilia has worked with many different international firms during her career. So yeah, Cecilia, thank you so much for being here today. And kind of the first thing that I wanted to ask you is to tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you in this world, and how would you define yourself in just 3 words, if that's not too much to ask?
Of course. Well, thank you for having me. And yeah, thanks for this series. I think it's very interesting. I'm definitely not a multimillionaire, so that's that's easy. Yeah, well, I'm Cecilia Scolaro. I'm Italian, and that's a part of my identity. But I live in the Netherlands for the last almost 15 years, so quite a while. Well, I have studied design a very long time ago in Milan, so that's also part of my identity, being a designer. But I explored a lot of different paths and different companies, and maybe I'm going to tell a little bit more about that. But I always felt very eclectic and very kind of explorer of the digital industry. So I worked in branding, I worked in marketing, I worked in communications, and then I worked in customer experience, and then I worked as a manager, and in small companies, in bigger companies, in startups, as for myself as well. So I really kind of tried all different shades and different tastes of the digital industry. So yeah, that's a part of who I am as well. The fact that I've tried so many different things. So I started again coming out of the university from Politecnico in Milan, from industrial design. I moved more into the agency world. And I worked a while in new guerrilla marketing campaigns, and that was a new thing. And then social media came out. So let's not say how long ago that was, quite some time. But then it was very nice to kind of discover this new world, discover people participation on the internet. And I really enjoy that. So I moved into all this world of co-creation and collaboration online. And then with my partner, we decided to move to the Netherlands. It was 2008. And we just packed our stuff and left. And I started working for a startup for the marketing of the startup, but also for the UX, because that was part of my background, although we were not calling it UX back then.
What were you calling that back then?
Well, we call it user interface. We were not really talking about experience too much yet. But that's the thing about the digital industry, that every few years I change my job title, or I change the kind of scope of work that I do. The words keep on changing and evolving.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, back then, after a while, I joined the big corporate, TNT, in the corporate communications department, in the online and social media. Then I stayed there for a while. I became brand manager. Then I was tired of the corporate life. I left, and I started to work as a freelancer, and also starting my own startup. And that I worked like that for a while, other 4 years or so, and then for a series of personal circumstances, I decided that that was enough. Among the rest, the fact that my business partner unfortunately passed. So I decided that I couldn't push further the venture alone. And I decided that I needed something a little bit easier for myself. So I joined another agency and consultancy, Mirabeau, in the Netherlands. And I grew in that space as well. And I became the director of the concept, strategy and design department that was around 55 people. And that Mirabeau was part of Cognizant. So then I took later the leadership of the European team, until I decided that also that wasn't working for me, and I wanted to really focus on responsible design. And that's what I've been doing in the last couple of years. So see many different things. So if I have to choose 3 words, the words I've chosen are explorer, because I always like to try and learn something new. I like to define myself a thinker, because I always like to see the system perspective, the big picture. Why are things happening in a certain way? And that gives me excitement, but also direction. Um, and the third is a team player, because I really like to work together with people and kind of pursue together something that is meaningful. So those 3 things have played in all the different roles, in all the different realities that I lived from.
Yeah, explorer, thinker, and team player. I think that's
Yes.
really cool. Actually, when you were talking, I thought that being an explorer in the digital space, it's you know, this metaphor even of a sea and, you know, navigating. I think that's really powerful because, as you said, so many things change and so quickly in the digital space. And then other things also, as you said, that maybe they change a little bit less, but then the concepts change all the time and the way we name things. So I think that's a very good definition about explorer. And then there was something else that you said that I thought was very interesting, is how you kind of didn't push yourself when you thought it was time to do something different. You know,
Yeah.
I think some people sometimes one can feel kind of obligation even to oneself to pursue a path that doesn't feel right or doesn't feel right at that moment. So I think it's an important and interesting lesson to kind of listen to yourself, to understand when is the moment to do something risky, when is the moment to go a little bit less risky. So yeah, it's not being black or white. It's just understanding in what moment of your life you are.
Yeah, and also because, you know, we hear so many stories. The narratives that we are told, even if you open LinkedIn, is all of like winning and performing and succeeding, and that's disingenuous. That is not real, right? And we know that. And I think that it's also very dangerous. It's a toxic positivity, because it really, you know, it makes you feel guilty if you aren't actually experiencing that moment of peak or whatever of winning. And it's especially true for women, and especially true for people from minorities, because we are given less chances, less possibilities to fail, while failure is such an important step that we have to go through and we have to experience, we have to learn from. And so I really learned about respecting that, respecting myself in this process, trying to be able to learn and take from these experiences as much as they were giving me, but giving myself the grace and the compassion to be able to take a break, to be able to step back, and not really push for this kind of always winning image.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's it's very important to show oneself vulnerable and not always on top of the game, because we all are people and have our good days and bad days. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And so you have been talking about your professional experience. So how that professional experience defined you as, you know, as a professional, but also as a person that you are today?
Yeah, well, the whole thing is very intertwined. I never believed in this kind of binary idea of personal and professional, or life and work balance. It's like I'm a whole person, right? I am happy and sad, and I'm excited, and I cry on a daily basis, right? Whether I'm like behind my computer working on something, or I'm doing something with my family, it's all part of the same. And it's I mean, COVID really showed us that, right? That we are showing our homes, our families on the background. That was powerful because of that, but because it took away that kind of acting somehow that we put up. So I mean, one of the reasons why I decided to work on responsible design is because on a personal level, I always been involved in social justice and equality. And I I felt it was just natural for me to be able to bring this into my digital expertise and trying to, support what I was trying to do in my personal life with my professional expertise. So those things are always so connected. And I think that I really strive to find a balance that I'm happy with, that's not necessarily closing things into departments or into compartments, right? It's really like about allowing myself to be in the workspace, allowing myself to be in a personal space, and allowing those two words to actually influence each other. Because again, I'm just one person, and I'm using a lot of the learnings from each side to improve myself, to grow. And that is going to be applicable both into my family life. Like I learned a lot from managing a team in a way I could even interact with my own son. And I learned a lot from interacting with my son on how to manage my team. And that's the beauty of it. That's why I think, we sometimes don't appreciate that much the lived experiences of people, right? We look traditionally, especially in the Western world, to the skills, the things you can list on your CV, but there are so many other things you learn via your own life, via your own experiences, and those are equally important to the professional that you want to become. And that's why having very diverse team is important, because you cannot you cannot capture that experience in a different way. You need people that have lived through those. You need parents. You need people that had a different background. You need people with different religions. You need people with different skin color. You need different people with different abilities of their bodies, because that has taught them different lessons so that they can that they're going to use and going to apply, and they're going to make better businesses and better solutions for other people.
Definitely, definitely. Guys, I'm just reminding you that at the end we are going to have some questions for Cecilia. So if you want, to leave something in the chat or in the question space, feel free, either now or at the end of the talk. And yeah, and I completely agree with what you're saying, Cecilia. I myself became a mom a year and a half ago, and I definitely feel how that also changed me, well, as a person, a lot, but as a professional also. Yeah, you kind of, maybe you prioritize things differently, you handle stress differently because you have different levels of stress. So it shows you all kinds of things. So it's there is a big intertwining, as you said, between the person that you are and the professional that you are.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're learning something about yourself, every day, and that's a main process that you go through, both in your professional, personal, social life. And that process of learning something about yourself sometimes is also very uncomfortable, right? It's like you understand something, and that you have that moment of truth, and that moment is somehow a bit gut-wrenching. It's like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was this way. But that also can become your superpower. You can own it, and there is nothing like becoming a parent that puts in that situation of hyper stress and hyper tiredness, that shows you your true colors, right? And that those moments are powerful and uncomfortable, but powerful. And that is a moment that you can embrace. And that's something that you can then decide what to do with. And that's, I think, in terms of personal and professional growth, so that's exactly what's about. It's understanding who you are, understanding what works for you, but also understand where you're going to be able to add more value with your own skills, with your own capabilities. Um, and that's important. I mean, adding value is not because you need to be productive, or, you need to deliver more, but it's because it's about pouring love in what you do. It's that level of adding value means that you are dedicated, and that nourishes you back, and that's a very unique place to find for yourself, that place where you feel you are valued, you feel you're adding value, and you feel you are recognized as you are seen by yourself as well. And that is a continuous seek of balance, but that also allows you to keep on growing. It's never finished. It's never done.
Yeah, this is a very powerful reflection. And do you, kind of building on that, do you think that showing oneself as vulnerable at the workplace with your colleagues, with your superiors, with your peers, do you think that kind of adds value, that shows you as strong or weak? Because sometimes a lot of people don't want to be seen as, vulnerable and all the personal stuff that they're going through.
So let me start with the fact that I think that showing your vulnerability is a privilege. It's something that not everybody can do, because of the mental state where they are, because the conditions where they are, because of the environment where they operate. So, and I think that is very important, because we should never make people feel guilty because they don't want to be vulnerable. Said so, I think that if you can, it's very powerful as well. it's that moment of discomfort, is that moment of uncomfortable feeling of showing part of yourself in a way that you haven't done before, that's gonna potentially make you grow and potentially give you much more back than you are actually giving. But it's a bet, it can also become painful. It's like an act of love, it's the same thing. So it is powerful and it's empowering as well, so it's not making you weak. But you need to be in the right state for being able to do that, and that's not necessarily always the case, and that's not always the right environment to do so. It needs to be a safe space, and being a safe space is a very difficult thing as well for a team, for much as a family, for an organization, for a society. It's a balance exercise to allow people to live space for people to be who they are, to celebrate who they are. It's not always the right moment or the right time, but that's where real growth comes.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I like what you said, that allowing oneself to be vulnerable is a privilege. I haven't thought about it that way, but it is true. It is true. It's a privilege, and not everyone can allow themselves to do so. Yeah, and kind of coming back from kind of more, let's say, deep right topics to responsible design. I was going to ask you about that myself, and I'm seeing already some questions are popping up, and various of them are on that. Can you give a little bit more detail onto what responsible design is, and how does one become a responsible designer?
All right. Okay. So responsible design is about applying, prioritizing sustainability, respect, and equity into the design of a business or a product or a service, a solution. As design has sometimes been considered only like the pushing of pixels, we designers that have put a lot of effort and study into that, we know that we have a more holistic perspective. And when we talk about designing something, it's not just about designing an interface, but it's about imagining a new future, and in order to imagine a new future, you need to be very aware of what the present is and what the past is, so that you can design and imagine the new future. Papanek was saying that everybody's a designer, because even the way that you decide how to arrange your desk is a decision that has an intention, that has a certain moment of imagination, and that is an act of design as well. So just catching, is it a skill or a mindset? Well, yeah, it's both. It's definitely a mindset, but it's also a skill that you need to train and you need to nurture. It's a craft that you learn. So designing responsibly, meaning doing all of that in a way that prioritizes the respect for people in their wholeness and celebrate their identities, that prioritizes equity and equality, and prioritizes the respect and the nurturing of our own environment, of our own planet. And in practice, it's applying all sort of new practices, or not new necessarily, but practices that center different perspectives. So we have worked in the last maybe 10 years around this idea of user and consumer, and designing for the majority, or universal design. And I think that has shown its limits. So responsible design is about enlarging and changing that center of gravitation.
And do you think companies nowadays, do they kind of align with those principles? Do they understand about responsible design?
I think, to be honest, they don't have too much of a choice not to. I mean, the consumer perspective has changed. So if you look at any form of survey or research in the last couple of years, they will tell you that as much as, I don't know, one research says 69, other research says 80% of people believe that brands must positively change the world. It's a change of pace, and it's also given because the generation Z has grown up with different values, with more communal values, with less experience values, and more common good, ethical values. So those are showing already in the workplace, with young people deciding where they want to work at, you know, and some companies having a very hard time retaining their talents or even hiring people. It's showing in the consumer behaviors. I mean, a lot of the fast fashion industry is shifting, you know, and it's a fact, but it's showing in policies, it's showing in overall business practices, it's showing in regulations. So this is a shift that is happening across all the different dimensions. So the question for responsible design is, okay, how do we apply this shift? Bless you.
Thank you.
How do we apply this shift to the digital industry? How do we apply this shift to design? So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it does very much feel like the same conversations I was having 15 years ago, when companies were telling me, oh, well, I don't need an e-commerce, you know, I'm fine. I have my real shop. And, you know, sure, yeah, they were fine for a while. But it's a really kind of natural shift of consciousness that is happening in the world. And for what it concerns, how does one become a responsible designer? It's about acquiring new skills, acquiring new mindsets and skills that allows to take into account new dimensions. But design has evolved in that direction. You know, at the beginning was a human computer interface, HCI, that's what we were calling it. That was very kind of confined. And then it became a service design, you know, so not just the interface, but the overall interaction with the service. Then it became experience design, right? So across the whole life cycle, across all the different channels. And I think this is just a natural next step for design.
Yeah, I think that links actually to one of the questions that we have from Marleti, who's actually one of our design leads, that says, what would you like the future of responsible design to bring?
Well, I think that as designers, we have both a responsibility and an opportunity. And the future for me that I see is that designers have that level of influence into an organization to bring these values to life, to apply values of sustainability, values of justice across all the different sides of an organization. And that at a certain point, it's not even called the responsible design anymore, because it's just the norm. You know, it's just the way that we are supposed to be as designers. So we are just supposed to build businesses that are not destroying the planet. It sounds pretty simple, right? But are we right now? We aren't. And we have been of course, part of a bigger system that hasn't prioritized that. It's, you know, it's not that black and white, but I think we have also underplayed our responsibility and our power in the process.
Yeah. We're having a lot of questions actually coming in.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So kind of following, we have a question from Peter, your Netherlands kind of peer. Was there any specific event or concern that made you decide to focus on responsible design? Like, did you see the trend moving in the wrong direction, or what was it?
Well, as reconnected to the question above, I mean, I've been interested in social justice for a very long time and active in this space. And I am the mother of a Black child. And that makes me way more aware of certain issues. So that's a personal investment in that. At the same time, I did see a lot of the things happening in the world that everybody has seen, like big tech going wrong. You know, when, again, I was there when social media started, and there had so much promise and was so much of like positive impact on society kind of drive. But, you know, I think that sometimes we say it's like a bit of the adolescence of digital world we've been through. Like, we went outside, we tried everything, you know, and we were super positive and optimistic about what we could do, and that's been great. But we haven't always considered the negative consequences or the unintended consequences of what we were doing, because we were so projected in the future and projected in changing the world. And I think now we have really a good opportunity because of shifting values, because of COVID, because of the growing scrutiny into big tech. We have a very good moment in history to say, wait a minute, what have we done? I mean, we had the best intention, I don't doubt that, but good intentions aren't enough. We need more awareness, we need more perspectives, we need more understanding of what we are doing in order to do it better. And I think it's an enormous opportunity for innovation, you know, much more than any metaverse kind of dimension.
Yeah, I 100% agree. On this note, actually, we have a very related question from Thaira, who's also a product designer here at Empathy. So all of these concepts that you're talking about that should be impulsed, but do you have any tips on how actually to impulse those concepts and conversations to those top level decision makers of the companies? So how do we go from theory to action?
Well, this kind of change is emergent and therefore is fractal. Fractal means that the little tiny decisions that you can take have the same shape of the big decisions in the organization that can be taken. So the most important thing is starting from your own self, to face your own programming and your own way of doing things and your own possibility to take different decisions. And that is going to open up different possibilities and open up different conversations with people. And that is also going to give you more tools and conversations pointers for bigger parties in the organization that can take different kind of decisions. But, you know, it's showing that you have a sphere of influence in whichever job you have, and that sphere of influence may feel small to you, but it isn't. It's, I mean, even if you're taking the decision on a small button on an interface, that button is going to have an impact of all the people that are going to use the interface in the world. And if you decide to make that accessible, for example, you're going to allow such a larger amount of people to be able to use it. And that's going to also allow you to show and to have a conversation with the other layers of the organization well, if I did that button, we can maybe do that other thing in the organization. It doesn't have to be this top-down complete change from day one. This is deeper, more important change that we need to go through. And even if we had the strongest strategy, but we didn't have enough awareness and skills and tools on the operational level of an organization, it wouldn't work. So you need both, and you need the right motivation to do that.
Yeah, I like that idea of kind of starting small, and that no action is actually small enough. We have Borja that I think wants to ask a question live. So Bo, you should be able to put your camera on. Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we don't see
Yes.
your camera, but we can hear you.
Yeah, you know why? I'm in the car. I'm parked, by the way.
Okay.
But I just wanted to, that's why, to raise my hand.
You're being responsible. You're not driving at the same time.
I'm being responsible, and talking of family, I'm with my two girls here in the car. I'm just telling them, please, to be silent for a little bit. So we'll try our best.
Hello there.
So, hi, Cecilia. Good to see you in this forum. I really enjoyed your personal journey and hearing from you on that. So, as you know, we are very much, our purpose is to change the way we relate to brands at Empathy. We believe it's a very unjust way on how brands harvest our data without any consent, and how we are invaded with ads, and how the data is being used with, we are not in control of how our data is used, who is it shared with, and so on. So I love the concept of responsible design. So my question is the following. How do we bring awareness? How do we bring a privacy first mindset into product design? Do you follow a framework, a process? How would you recommend us that we bring in this capability into the way we design?
Well, I think, as I mentioned before, change comes from within. So I really believe that the best way to implement this kind of different mindset and mentality is by getting people to question their own practices and their own craft. And well, yes, there is frameworks. There is a framework that I apply, and that's based on questions. It's like a lot of questions that you can ask yourself in the process of designing something. But it's not gonna work if you don't have the intention of a person to change and to really question their own practices. So tools and processes are fundamental, but they don't work without the right motivation. So building the right motivation means being able to tap into people's beliefs and people's inner motivation. And well, there is a old but good book that I always refer to, which is Drive by Daniel Pink. And basically, he explored all sorts of psychological studies and summarized that inner motivation is driven by autonomy, so the ability of deciding what I'm going to do. Mastery, so getting better and keep on learning on what I want to do, and bigger picture, bigger perspective. So I'm contributing to something bigger that has meaning. So you need to be able to tap into this inner motivation of people, and then you can actually let them ask themselves the questions. Is the decision I'm taking right now on this product, in this specific interface, or in this specific back-end process, is it actually respecting users? Is it respecting their integrity? Is it allowing them to take choices for themselves? And what if I was in that position as a user? Would I like that? But at the same time, maybe give away some of the practices that we have been applying for so many years. And first of all, personas, where we have taken so many assumptions about people, and we have taken so many assumptions about what a person with certain characteristic would want. And maybe you have seen the meme going around with Ozzy Osbourne and Charles, the Prince of England, that they have the same characteristic as personas in terms of age or economic status, but for certain very different habits. But also our habit of taking a lot of decisions for users without involving them. So there are a lot of different skills and tools and frameworks that we can apply. They need to be fueled by the right motivation. Does it answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. We are shared minds, or we share our beliefs as well on using personas, and not, you know, in the end, it's the individual what matters, right? When we try to group people in segments, in audiences, you miss out on the real outcomes.
Exactly.
And you answer that we have to design for outcomes, for feelings, for how people will behave, how to change behaviors through design. So that was great. Yeah, a very good example of responsible design is Zoom in safe driving mode. It doesn't allow me, even if I'm parked, it doesn't allow me to switch on the camera. So I'm really happy for, I'm sorry you cannot see me now, but I'm in the car, I'm parked, but the Zoom designers did very well with that, not allowing to tap into the video. The car.
Nice, indeed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And Zoom has some other nice feature about accessibility. I think they're doing quite well in that space.
Yeah, we have some other questions that we won't probably have time to answer all of them. We have one actually very similar to the one Borja asked, so let's consider Nina's question more or less answered. And let's just do one as a finishing note, which I think is a good finishing note, a question from Julia from our HR Interesting team. What advice would you give to a person starting this professional path?
Well, thank you for this question, because I think that's something that I wanted to address and I wasn't able to address yet. And it's about the definition of success. So I think that, you know, we are fed a lot of stories of people that had a very clear idea: when I grow up, I want to be X, you know, and we almost made feel guilty if we don't have that. Well, I never had that, and I learned that I didn't need that. That wasn't good for me. I didn't need one goal or one image that you know, was imposed on me, on what I wanted to become. So it's about finding what your definition of success is and freeing yourself up from the expectations that you know, success looks like out there, and what's actually good or not good for yourself. And especially freeing yourself up from expectations that you have as a woman, or maybe a woman from Southern Europe, but that, you know, you're expected to be, I don't know, caring, or you're expected to be passionate with a little bit of a paternalistic tone. The point is, you need to find what works for you, where you can add value, and that may look very different from the image of success that you've been fed. And it takes time and work to free yourself up from those images. And that is also a privilege, to have that time and that ability and that space to work on that, and the safe space to be able to do that. But yeah, there is not really other way to reach your own balance.
I think I completely agree. And yeah, having clear goals in life is very enriching for some people. But I also agree that for others that don't have a clear idea what they want to do in their life, they shouldn't beat themselves up, and it's just following a path and kind of figuring it out while you go. So yeah, I agree with that idea. So thank you so much, Cecilia, for sharing so many very powerful, interesting thoughts with us, both on vulnerability, responsible design, your journey. As I said, there are actually more questions. I might send them to you by email so that
by all means.
Yeah, who has the questions, they can have the response. So, and again, thank you so, so much. And I really hope to chat with you in the future again.
Thank you. Thank you all for the very nice welcome and the nice questions. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Bye-bye, Cecilia. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.